and Sinead O'Connor here from Nourish and Recover. And I am very grateful to be joined by my colleague, Keith Robinson. You're welcome, Keith.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So this afternoon, we are going to discuss the High Desert Heart Institute study. Keith is very au fait with that, and we're going to go through what the study did and what the outcomes were for the patients. So Keith, I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, the study was done quite some time ago, and there was the guy who runs the High Desert Heart Institute is a man called Dr. Siva Arunasalam. Now, he trained in the Cedars-Sinai Institute, and then he set up his own heart institute called the High Desert Heart Institute. And he had come across L-Arginine Plus, our flagship product, and he decided he would like to do a clinical study. Now, this is something he undertook himself. He paid for the entire study, which was not cheap. I think it would cost somewhere around $250,000 to do the study, because there was 7,000 points of data collected on the 33 patients that ended up doing the study. Now, it was supposed to be 35 patients, but 2 of the people who had agreed to take part actually got offers of transplants. And they decided to take the transplant instead of doing the study. You can't really blame them, but in my opinion, if they went the other route, they wouldn't have to worry about all the medication that's involved on rejection, because I think they would have actually got their functionality back.
Yes.
So that's what the study was about. Do you want me to pull up the results of the study?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Let me click on where these are. I'll click entire screen, share, and then I'll pull up the PowerPoint. And that should bring us to that. Have we left off?
Yep.
Okay. So the initial people taking part were 35. It ended up being 33. And these are the results in the PowerPoint of what changed. So first of all, you had an increase in the high density lipoproteins. They call it the good cholesterol. It's the bigger sized ones. And a 40% decrease in triglycerides, an 8% glucose reduction. You had a 25% decrease in C-reactive proteins. You had 11% reduction in creatinine levels, a 35% increase in magnesium levels, even though there was no magnesium in the product. But magnesium is really important for cardiovascular function, and 300 enzymatic functions depend on magnesium. There was a decrease in the platelets of the blood, which means it wasn't as sticky. Albumin decreased 70%, bilirubin decreased significantly. I believe that's linked to kidney improvements. Vitamin D levels increased 183%. The systolic blood pressure came down 13%. The dystolic decreased 17%. So both.
Can you explain what that means, Keith?
When you have your blood pressure checked with a cuff on your arm, you're going to get 2 figures, systolic and dystolic. The systolic is always going to be the higher figure. The dystolic is going to be the lower figure. And often people say that the lower figure is actually the more important. So 120/80 is what they call average. And so anything, when you're getting anywhere around there, you could say normal. But both the systolic and the dystolic went down on these patients in this 90-day period. Peripheral blood flow increased to the feet and ankles by 16%. That's a lot of extra blood flow getting down to the extremities that wasn't getting there before.
Yeah.
The central aortic systolic pressure, which is the blood pressure in the heart at the left ventricle, went down by 6%. Now, the reason you'd have the 6% decrease in the central aortic and the systolic and diastolic dropping is because as blood flow starts to get back to the places in the body that it was trying to get to,
Mm-hmm.
then the body turns off the messaging asking the heart to rise in pressure. So in other words, the
Okay.
body is going to keep asking the heart to rise in pressure to try and get blood flow somewhere. And until it gets there, it won't stop sending that message. So
Yes.
these figures reduced because blood flow was getting back to where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Pulmonary hypertension dramatically improved,
What
and
does that mean? Just, I think it's
that'd be
important that
through the
we.
lung function.
Okay.
So people were having pressure around the lungs. It was high blood pressure to do with the area around the pulmonary section. So it'd be lung issues. So lots of these people were having difficulty breathing.
Right. Because these are people, we didn't mention at the beginning, Keith. These were people really who were waiting for a heart transplant.
There was a
Were
good
they?
percentage of them that were on transplant waiting lists, but every one
Okay.
of them were medically maxed out. In other words, there was no more medications that could be given to them to benefit them. They were maxed out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Now, what is really exciting is that at the end of the 90 days, every patient that was on a transplant waiting list was taken off that waiting list because they no longer required a transplant.
Wow.
That was just 90 days at 4 sachets a day. There was 2
Mm-hmm.
a.m. and 2 p.m. And that was
Right.
the way they decided to do it. Now, there was no Mystify or Fight to Life, or if you're in the US, no Mystica or liquid chlorophyll
Mm-hmm.
involved in that study. That was a 90-day study just on Pro-Arginine Plus. But I happened to got talking to Dan Austin, who was the clinical nurse director of the study. He's the guy who managed the whole thing for Dr. Siva Arunasalam. And he told me that as soon as the 3-month part of the study was over, they were able to give them the Mystify and the Fight to Life also. And he said at the end of the year, they were actually either off their medications completely or had reduced them by 98% by using all 3
Wow.
products for the bones of a year.
Right. Okay.
And that is phenomenal.
It sure is by any standards. So, Keith, can you explain what the Pro-Arginine Plus actually does?
Well, this is what they wanted to prove, and they did prove it really well, because Pro-Arginine Plus is what's called an arginine complexer.
Yes.
Arginine is the amino acid that when it goes into the bloodstream, it parks on the lining of the veins and the arteries called the endothelium. And this is where we manufacture nitric oxide. But unfortunately, most people do not make enough. And when you are not making enough, that's when you clog up the arterial system with plaque because you're not keeping it melted. You're
Mm-hmm.
not keeping it clean, elastic, and free flowing. And this is what then causes obstructions to blood flow. This is what causes stiffness in the arteries. And then this is what causes high blood pressure and high cholesterol. Because
Mm-hmm.
we're now under pressure trying to get the blood flow through the whole system, and the body keeps asking the heart to rise in pressure to get the job done.
Yeah.
So Pro-Arginine Plus has, every sachet would have 5 grams of pure elemental arginine from a vegetarian source. And this is what we need to give the body so as it can now start increasing its own nitric oxide production. And they did the study on 4 sachets a day. We always recommend people build up to that they
Mm-hmm.
start off on
Yeah.
a sachet a day, they move to 2, they move to 3, and they analyze what is the level of fuel we need to give the body, and we know it's now making a difference. So if you have no
And
reaction
it's.
on 1 sachet a day, well, then you're going to have to give it more fuel. And
Mm-hmm.
and once you know that there's things changing, that the blood pressure is starting to come down, or the cholesterol is starting to come down, or the cold feet or hands are warming up, or there is sign of more energy or better sleep, or the body's going through repair, you know you have now hit the baseline that you shouldn't go below if you still want to make progress.
Yes. And just, I think it's also useful to mention the 1998 Nobel Prize.
Exactly, because that was what proved that nitric oxide was a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. And this is why Dr. Siva took a big interest in proving the benefits of Arginine Plus to his patients. And Dr. Joe, of course, had proven all that beforehand with his patients. So it
Dr.
had a
Joe
proven track
Prendergast.
record, yes.
Yes. So, can you talk about your experience with Dr. Joe, maybe?
Yeah, I was privileged to have met him a couple of times when he was in Ireland, and actually he signed my certificate on the B Pro training for the cardiovascular screening,
Yeah.
which is nice to have that signature on that form.
Yes.
And he was looking for a way to help his diabetic patients, and he had seen the 1998 Nobel Prize for Medicine. He knew that arginine would have an impact, but he also knew that arginine on its own would not last long
Hmm.
because you're only making nitric oxide for between 1 and 3 seconds. So he's the guy who formulated ProArginine Plus and worked out that you need a certain ratio of both arginine and another amino acid called citrulline, plus other ingredients. And by getting the ratio of everything correct and having the quality correct, you can then have a huge impact on nitric oxide production. And
Hmm.
he tested this on his patients, and over a 20-year period with 19,000 patients, 85% of whom were diabetic, and statistically, two-thirds of diabetics die from heart disease. He actually had no patient die from heart attack or stroke over that
Wow.
period
In a
of time,
20-year period.
a 20-year period. And
Wow.
what happened was that there was about 4 cardiologists in his town where he was,
Hmm.
and he used to keep them fed with work all the time because of the amount of
Yes.
patients he had. And then he didn't actually need to feed them with work anymore. 3 of them had to relocate somewhere else because
Because there
they were
weren't
no
the
longer
referrals
they were
to
no
a
longer getting
cardiologist.
no longer
Yeah.
getting the flow of patients through. In fact, one of the cardiologists sent a sympathy card to Dr. Joe's wife, thinking he was deceased because he wasn't sending patients.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
funny story, but true.
Yes. I do think, Keith, that it's really important for people to understand the importance of nitric oxide and how it can help repair the cardiovascular system of people. And maybe you'd give us a talk, show us the slide of the 85-year-old that and
Yeah,
that you screened, and we can see the results of just 3 months. Now, this would have been with the V3, wasn't it? As opposed to
yes,
just proarginine on its own.
yeah. So is that showing up there?
Yeah. Hmm.
So you'll see 2 different colored waveforms. You'll see a blue and a red. You'll see 2 sets of
Hmm.
figures on the bottom. You'll see a blue and a red. The blue waveform is when I met him first, in the blue figures. So that was to
Hmm.
get an analysis of where his starting point was. So that was his blood pressure when I met him first, 167/95.
Hmm.
3 months later, when I rescreened him, his blood pressure was back down to 131/77. That's a big
Hmm.
drop.
Yeah.
Um, Another figure we go by, I mentioned it earlier, central aortic systolic pressure, because it's one of the figures that was in the High Desert Heart Institute measurements. 162 was his figure when I met him first. And to put that into context, if you look at the average ages and the average pressures here, you'd have to keep bringing this chart all the way down to an average 185-year-old person to work at a pressure of 162. So
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
disaster waiting to happen.
Hmm.
But by using the V3 for 3 months, He was, I believe, he was on 4 sachets a day at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He dropped his central aortic pressure to 122. And
Mm-hmm.
I happen to know that an average 80 to 90-year-old pressure is 122. So he
Yeah.
took 100 years off his heart pressure in 3 months.
Wow.
That's a lot of extra blood flow getting throughout the body that wasn't getting there. And now the body has turned off the messaging to work at
Yes.
such a high pressure for the heart. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the radial augmentation index is like the flexibility of the arteries. It's sort of giving you a percentage stiffness, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So 107 was the figure when I met him first, which is similar to age and the central aortic pressure. 90 days later, his elasticity improved to 80% stiffness. And you
Mm-hmm.
can see an average 60 to 70-year-old should work at around 81.9. So he improved better than a 60 to 70-year-old. The only way you're going to improve that figure is by cleaning the arteries and getting back to flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how much.
And actually, yeah, can you bring up that slide that shows the artery and the way it narrows as people age, just so
Yeah,
that people can have an
I can put it up
understanding of what,
next. I
yeah,
just want to show one more figure
sorry.
here first.
Mm.
The radial augmentated pressure is an important figure, even though it doesn't look very important.
Yeah.
It's related to the waveform. So you see the peak here I'm pointing at.
Yeah.
That's the heart pumping out blood at the left ventricle. And it goes out the left ventricle, it goes down and it bifurcates for the 2 legs. And then there's a rebound wave that bounces back at the bifurcation point. So that's his heart pumping out blood. It goes left to right. Somewhere over here is the bifurcation point and it bounces back. In his case, his rebound wave was bouncing back so fast, it passed out the wave going out and it rebounded on the left-hand side. It shouldn't be rebounding on the left-hand side. +4 is what he got, was showing me that is a rebound faster than the wave going out. Look at the
Yeah.
change in 90 days. His rebound wave is coming back at a much lesser -10.
Yeah.
So that's his heart pumping out blood. His rebound wave is actually here. So he's in the process of remodeling his cardiovascular waveform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's telling me there was no blood flow getting down to his legs here. This is telling me a lot more blood flow is getting down to his legs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Yeah.
the B-Pro screening. And I can show you the cross-section of the artery there now too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because that, as you say, makes a lot of sense then.
Yes.
So here's the cross-section. And
Yeah.
this is what's happening in most people's arterial system. We have a clean, elastic, and free-flowing arterial system in our 20s, but we are manufacturing plenty of nitric oxide.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to our 40s, we naturally make less, and we're only making 50% of what we made in our 20s when we're in our 40s.
Mm-hmm.
When people get to their 50s, they're only making 35% of what we made in our 20s, and when we get to our 60s, 15%. Now, God knows what it is when we get on beyond our 60s. I have to imagine it's very poor altogether. But we can override that. And even back here, we are thickening the wall of the arteries. And as we thicken the wall of the arteries, when the heart is pumping blood, we are actually causing little cracks and tears in the arterial system. And that's why your body instructs your liver to make extra cholesterol to go in and seal the cracks and tears.
Interesting.
When I was doing cardiovascular screenings, nearly everybody that had high level of stiffness in their arteries would tell me, I have high cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got them on the V3 and they actually melted this plaque and cleaned the arteries, got their flexibility back, they always told me their cholesterol had come back down again.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So high cholesterol is really because of a lack of nitric oxide production. It's not the original problem.
Yes.
And
yeah.
you see the lack of blood flow that would get through that's 2/3
Yes.
block.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine everything the far side of that screaming at the brain to ask the heart to rise in pressure? We don't have enough blood. Can you rise up the pressure?
Yeah.
So this is why people have high blood pressure. They're not
Hmm.
getting the blood flow where it needs to get to. But they're often put on medications to instruct the heart not to listen to the body,
Hmm.
but to tell the heart to lower down on pressure, which then starves those parts of the body back down to the supply that they had
Yeah.
when they started asking the heart to
Hmm.
rise in pressure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're really going up a downpipe,
Yeah.
working the way that they're going.
Well, yeah. Well, Keith, thank you so much for that. I think that that is great information, and really anybody that has any kind of heart issues, but it's we know, of course, like the V3 is just it's not sorry. We know that really once you open up the blood flow in the body, that is the key. And then the V3, or like which has the pro-arginine, but it has the mystifying, the fighter life. That is what gives the real nutrition and helps the body to really do the repair that needs to take place.
At a cellular level, the body is then capable of repairing whatever it needs
Yeah,
to repair because it now has the fuel that is no longer in our food.
yeah, yeah. And that is the thing, I guess, that doesn't really get talked about at all is the way the our food has been depleted due to modern farming practices. So
Yeah,
Um, I think that this has been a great session, and thank you so much. And we will hopefully this will be of help to a lot of people.
I imagine it will be if they look at it.
Yes. So if anybody wants information on how to get either the V3 protocol or the ProRG9 Plus or any other information, then my contact details will be available at the end of this recording. Thanks, Keith.
No problem. Good luck.